Philadelphia Eagles news generated one of the richest and most honest debates of the entire offseason, my friend, and it is not about the A.J. Brown trade, not about salary cap, and not about locker room drama. It is about history. It is about the question that every Philadelphia fan has asked out loud at least once in their life, but that is rarely answered with the rigor it deserves. Is Jalen Hurts the best quarterback in Eagles history? That debate returned to the center of the conversation in a way nobody expected this week, at the exact moment when Hurts' own future with the franchise is being questioned by the same analysts who just a few months ago could not imagine Philadelphia without him. So if you're a true Eagles fan, hit that like button and subscribe right now, because this is the most important debate in the history of this franchise. I'm going to walk you through the greatest quarterbacks who ever wore the green uniform of Philadelphia, why each of them has a real argument to enter this conversation, what the numbers and the historic moments say about Hurts' place on that list, and why the answer to this question is far more complicated than it appears and depends entirely on the criteria you use to define what it means to be the best. But first, hit that like and subscribe to the channel, because the Eagles never stop making headlines. The Philadelphia Eagles franchise has existed for more than 90 years. In that time, quarterbacks who defined generations passed through Lincoln Financial Field and the stadiums that came before it, men who brought fans to tears, who created memories that are still passed from father to son in the stands of Philadelphia. The question of who was the best of all time has never had a simple answer. And in 2026, with Jalen Hurts at the center of the most complex conversations this franchise has ever had, it became even harder to answer. Let us start at the beginning. Ron Jaworski, the Polish Rifle. The first Eagles quarterback to reach the Pro Bowl in the Super Bowl era. In 1980, Jaworski led Philadelphia to the only Super Bowl appearance in franchise history before the modern era, a game the Eagles lost to the Oakland Raiders by 27-10 in Super Bowl 15. But the path to that final was the kind of campaign that builds legends in a city. Jaworski completed 62% of his passes that season, played 16 games, and demonstrated the leadership and consistency that transformed the Eagles from a middling team into a genuine championship threat. He did not win the Super Bowl, but he put Philadelphia on the league map in a way no quarterback had done before. Then came Randall Cunningham. If Jaworski represented the power of consistency, Cunningham represented something the entire NFL had never seen before. A quarterback who was simultaneously the best passer and the best runner on the field. In 1990, Cunningham had one of the most spectacular seasons in the history of the position, finishing with 3,046 passing yards and 542 rushing yards in a single year. The problem with Cunningham was not the talent. It was the consistency and above all the luck. Injuries and a roster that was rarely complete around him prevented his career in Philadelphia from translating into championships. But nobody who watched Cunningham play can honestly say they saw anything like it before or after. Donovan McNabb is the name that makes this debate truly complex. Number 5 was the Eagles quarterback for 11 seasons. 11 years of NFC dominance that included 4 consecutive NFC Championship Game appearances, a trip to Super Bowl 39 after the 2004 season, and a consistency of performance that very few quarterbacks in the league have ever managed to sustain for that long. The Eagles retired McNabb's number 5, a gesture that by itself says everything about the place he occupies in franchise history. But Super Bowl 39 was a loss to Tom Brady's New England Patriots, and the absence of a championship defines the McNabb conversation in a way that is difficult to ignore when the subject is the greatest of all time. Michael Vick deserves his own paragraph in this debate, not because he is the strongest candidate for the greatest in franchise history, but because the 2010 season was perhaps the most electrifying that any quarterback ever provided to Eagles fans in the entire history of the franchise. 10 consecutive victories, a historic comeback against the New York Giants, in which the team was down by 21 points. Vick was the NFC MVP that year and was at the center of a run that made Philadelphia believe the championship was within reach. It was not. But what he put on the field that year remains unmatched in terms of pure spectacle. Nick Foles has an argument that none of the other quarterbacks on this list can use. He won the Super Bowl. And not just won it. He took MVP honors in the game with one of the most audacious performances in football history, in Super Bowl 52 against Brady's Patriots. A victory that included the Philly Special and a final score of 41-33 that still makes any Eagles fan smile just thinking about it. The logic of Foles is powerful and simple. If the ultimate criterion is winning the biggest game in the sport, He did exactly that when nobody expected it, and in a way nobody will ever forget. But a single season as a starter, even one that culminates in a Super Bowl championship, is not enough to build a sustained argument for the greatest quarterback in franchise history. And then we arrive at Carson Wentz, the quarterback who perhaps carries the greatest tragedy in Eagles history. In 2017, before the injury that ended his season in Week 14, Wentz was building what was reasonably the argument for the best individual season by a quarterback in franchise history. 33 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a passer rating of 101.9, and an Eagles team on its way to one of the best records in the NFL before Wentz's knee gave out in a game in Los Angeles. What would have been if not for the injury? That question haunts Eagles fans to this day. But football is not played on the field of what if, and what Wentz delivered after that moment never came close to that level again. And Jalen Hurts, the quarterback who arrived in Philadelphia as the 53rd overall pick in the 2020 draft, who had to earn the roster and the city's trust one game at a time, who went to Super Bowl 57 in 2023 and lost to Patrick Mahomes in a way that still stings, and who came back in 2024 to complete the arc of the story with one of the most dominant performances in Super Bowl history, leading the Eagles to the Super Bowl 59 championship against the same Chiefs who had beaten them 2 years earlier. Hurts was named MVP of Super Bowl 59. He would have been MVP of Super Bowl 57 had the Eagles' defense not collapsed in the second half of a painful defeat. 3 Pro Bowl selections, 2 Super Bowl appearances as a starter, 1 championship, 1 Super Bowl MVP, 2 dominant blowout victories in NFC Championship games. Those are Jalen Hurts' numbers in the most important moments. And that is exactly where Hurts' argument becomes stronger than any of the names that came before him. But the debate is not simple because there are 2 criteria that lead to different conclusions. If you believe that longevity and sustained impact over a decade define the greatest quarterback in a franchise's history, McNabb's argument is very difficult to knock down. 11 years at an elite level, number retired, and the foundation upon which the entire modern Eagles era was built. If you believe that the most important moments define the greatest players, Hurts' argument is the strongest on the list. Nobody who ever wore the green uniform played better in the 2 or 3 games that matter most than Hurts did. And there is one statistical data point that places Hurts in a unique and objective position in this conversation. Since 2020, Hurts ranks 85th out of 88 eligible quarterbacks in percentage of throws between the numbers below 15 air yards. A number that reflects exactly the criticism the most sophisticated analysts make about his game in tight windows and on short passes between the hashes. But that same quarterback is entering his 7th season with a new offensive coordinator, a new receiver group, and the promise of evolution that Sean Mannion brought to the Jefferson Health Training Complex. The debate about the greatest quarterback in Eagles history has never been more relevant than it is right now, because for the first time in many years, Hurts' future in the role is not an absolute certainty beyond 2027, and the answer to who was the best of all time could change depending on what the current quarterback delivers in the season that is about to begin. For you, who is the greatest quarterback in Eagles history? Jalen Hurts with Super Bowl 59 and the MVP award, Donovan McNabb with 11 years of NFC dominance, or is there another name you place above all of them? Leave your opinion in the comments. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe to the channel. I'll be back later with the latest Eagles news.